All right, all right. Welcome back, everybody. Ken, how are you doing? Do I have Ken yet? Here we go. Welcome back to the creative economy, everyone. Now I can't find my script. What do I do with that?
Once again, I declare a mulligan.
There it is. We're just having a great day today, you know? Welcome back, yes, to the creative economy. It's our weekly interview series where we talk to leaders from the creator space doing all kinds of interesting things. We try to go deep on different topics that impact the creator economy and its growth over time. We do go live on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific time, although today we are running 20 minutes behind because of unforeseen errors. But you can find out more over at created.show is the official show page for the creative economy if you want to find out about future episodes, ask questions of our upcoming guests, etc. Did I say this already? We do stream live on Facebook, YouTube. I think today we're doing LinkedIn, Twitch, sometimes, and occasionally Clubhouse, but definitely usually Twitter Spaces when we get around to it. And you can also find longer form content and notes over at our website, createdeconomy.com. So feel free to head over there. We have our mailing list, we have show notes and other things like that. Just a little bit more housekeeping. This is episode 22. Can you believe it, Ken?
Double twos. Wait, yeah. Twos. I don't know.
22, probably about 30, at least 30 episodes this year. So pretty interesting. We do have 3 shows a week, however, so feel free to let us know or find an opportunity to participate. On Tuesdays, we do our office hours for the creator economy, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Wednesdays, of course, that's this show, which you're tuned in for right now. And then, of course, on Fridays, we have Creative Briefs, which is our news show, which is at 8 a.m. Pacific time as well. We look forward to seeing you there. Give us a follow if you don't mind. We're Creative Economy everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Flipboard, YouTube, Twitch. We appreciate the follow. So, by the way, the official coin of the Creative Economy show is the AMA coin. You can grab some right now by scanning that QR code, except for you, Peter. You already have some. But we are doing a drop this week. I've changed the rules a little bit because I see too many people just buying it and selling it. So you have to hold at least one to actually get one this time. But feel free. The coin will unlock future opportunities. We're going to find out all about how those work from our friend Peter Shankman in just one moment. We also do have our own Slack if you want to, chat and catch up with other creators and builders in the space. Feel free to join our Slack. We're at bit.ly/created-slack. You can grab it over there. If you're watching the video, just scan that QR code and it'll also give you a chance to get in there. Now, let's get straight into it, though. We have our friend Peter Shankman. He's been very patient waiting behind the scenes for us. And we're just going to dive right into it. So, Peter, it's been a pleasure. We rescheduled this. Originally, I think we were supposed to have you like early in the month, but then you were having originally, I think we planned it around your Ironman, actually, right? Oh,
Nope,
you're on mute.
You're on mute there.
That's why we can't have nice things. No, it was originally, it was originally right around the time of the Ironman, and then of course, COVID Delta variant decimated Hawaii. I was supposed to do the World Championships there. COVID came in and just destroyed that opportunity. So this is the second year in a row that I've been training for a full Ironman, and it has been canceled on me. Last year, same reason. And so, kind of at the point that I'm either going to do the third one and like probably win it at this point, or well, no, that's actually so not true. But yeah, it's been a one heck of a bummer. You know, you bust your ass all that time. But on the plus side, I raised over 100 grand for Leukemia Lymphoma Society. So
amazing.
That's
By the way, what is your favorite? What is your best part, worst part in the Ironman?
So my favorite part is probably the swim, because if you look at me, your first thought isn't, oh, he does Ironmans. Your first thought is he watches the movie Iron Man while sitting on his ass eating popcorn. And so in the swim, the secret that no one knows is that heavier guys float better, right? Because we have a lot of insulation. And so we tend to float, which makes the swim a little easier. And then, of course, downhills on the bike, we go screaming past the leaders because it's basic physics. The run is hands down my worst. When I do races or marathons, my joke is that I don't finish with the Kenyans. I finish with like guys named Ken. And so, you know, but I'm still up. I'm still doing it, and I'm still, you know, I'm out there, and it's one of those things that keeps me sane. I do it not to win. That's never gonna happen. I do it because for my mental health, my ADHD, and everything like that. I know that if I don't exercise, it's just not a good day. So.
Yeah. So Peter, why don't we to kind of get deep into your interests and kind of like help people that are watching or listening in terms of the creator economy? Like, why don't you give your origin story, your backstory? Like, how did you get into the world of tech, the world of marketing, being an entrepreneur, investor, to where you are now?
So I wasn't supposed to be doing any of this. I was in graduate school studying fashion and portrait photography in the early 90s in Santa Barbara, California. Like, who wouldn't want to do that, right? And my premise was, yeah, I'll shoot for Cosmo or Playboy or Vogue. Okay. With 18 credits to go, I lost my financial aid. The government sent me a letter that said, your parents make too much money, we're taking your financial aid away. And I sent the government back a letter that said, my parents do make too much money, however, they keep it. And the government didn't find that funny. And so they'd already put me through Boston University. I couldn't in good conscience ask them to pay for the rest of grad school. So I moved back home to New York City. And as most amazing things happen, this was totally random. It was 1995. I was hanging out, for those under 35 here, it's not going to make any sense. I was hanging out in something called the Melrose Place TV Gossip Chat Room on America Online. I'm not proud of that, but someone in that chat room said, hey, my company's trying to build a newsroom. You have a journalism degree from BU, submit your resume. And I did. And 2 weeks later, I was being moved down to Virginia to become one of the 3 original editors of the AOL newsroom. This was back in 95 when AOL was the internet. And we had no idea what we were doing, but we knew we had to build a digital newsroom somehow, and we did. And it was the most incredible and most educational 3 years of my life. I learned more from my direct bosses and more from Steve Case and more from Ted Leonsis than I think I've ever learned at any other point in my life before or since. And I also learned that at the end of the day, nothing is really secure, and they let go of 75% of their content team one fateful afternoon in 97, 98, I guess. And yeah, we were all out of a job, but we had all this AOL experience, right? So I moved back to New York, and I had this idea that the .com boom was starting, and people would need PR and need some knowledge that I had. So I launched a PR firm, again, with absolutely no experience, and actually with no money. But it was the summer of 98, and there was a little independent film coming out on video called Titanic that you may have heard of. I live near Times Square. I still do. And everywhere in Times Square, there are all these signs, buy Titanic on video. So I took my rent money, like all the money I had in the bank, and I had 500 t-shirts printed up, and it read, sank, get over it. And I'm not even joking. I went into Times, I don't know who does this. I did it. I went to Times Square. I figured it would take a week to sell 180 shirts at $10 to make my rent back. I sold 506 hours, made $5,000, leaked the story to a reporter at USA Today. It ran on the front page. I sold 10,000 shirts on the web. uh,
Holy cow.
over the following. There was no Cafe Press. There was no like Teespring. There was like me with my, boxing T-shirts, and my dad was a high school principal, and I had him send me his detention students, and we boxed T-shirts every night. But I funded my first PR firm, and we repped Napster and Juno and these incredible tech companies, and with no experience. And
Did you pick, like, did you have a rhyme or reason of which companies you repped? I mean, because you're talking about Napster and all these other companies, and like, was there a particular focus? Like some PR firms might look at like enterprise or AI.
I
or
wasn't
anything like that.
I wasn't anywhere near experienced enough to even think that far. I'm like, oh, it's a .com gold rush. Everyone needs PR. They're all throwing money at every agency out there. If I don't take it, the one down the hall is going to. So yeah, let's figure it out. And yeah, did it for about 3 years, and the agency got acquired by a larger agency. Right before the crash, like right at the tip of the. So I'm like, I'm very lucky. Consulted for a bunch of years, and eventually, just because what best known for, because I have massive ADHD, I talk to everyone, and I had this huge Rolodex, and reporters knew me, and they call me and say, hey, everyone, I'm doing a story on blah blah blah. Who do you know? And they do that a lot, and it got harder and harder, or took more and more of my time to help these reporters. And so I'm like, what if I just make it a Facebook group? And that lasted a week until we outgrew it, and I turned it into an email list, and that became Help a Reporter Out, or Harrow.
Yeah.
And Harrow, in 3 years, went from 0 to 1 million subscribers on my couch. And yeah, it was acquired 3 years later, 2010, and that was sort of my game-changing moment.
Yeah.
Since then, I've been very fortunate. I'm a speaker. I invest. I consult. I go on TV. I write books. Have a dog and a kid.
It's funny because I when I lived in New York, I'm born and raised in New York also, and I was a subscriber of Harrow like ages ago, and it was pretty amazing. It's fun now to be here, like chatting with you in like our live stream, like considering like.
Well, and there are only about 8 real New Yorkers that were born and raised here. So like you and I make up like a third of them right there, a fourth of them.
I was born.
Very
I was
cool.
born in the Bronx. Well, in the Bronx. I grew up in the Bronx, actually. Yeah.
Where'd you go to high school, man? I gotta ask.
We moved up to Rockland County when
Okay.
I was in 3rd grade. So I went to school in New City, but I went back for college to NYU, and my first office actually was on 14th Street between 5th and 6th, above the Blimpies originally.
Yeah.
So, all of these things mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Now,
what, Blimpies, that one or that one or that one? I don't know. It's all the same.
So Peter, I guess like, our audience is obviously lots of creators and just as equally important, builders. One of the things I think you've mastered and even in describing, even the way you've told this now, is just really the power of storytelling, right? And there seems to be like two divergent worlds, right? Like startups often, like founders are horrible storytellers, right? Because they're like obsessed with like minutia and details, but not narrative, right? And then I think creators excel at actually storytelling, but then often lack the parts behind it sometimes to like back into those stories into meaningful ways. What does that convergence look like for you? And what's your advice, I guess, for folks on how to like be better at both parts? Because you've done a great job of executing on both fronts.
So that's a phenomenal analogy, and it works perfectly. It is a perfect description. The people who are brilliant at the minutia are usually not good at the sort of the vision and talking about the vision. And the people who are brilliant at talking about the vision usually need help in other aspects because they get, like me, I love talking. I love sharing my ideas. I love sharing. But on the flip side, I do things like, forget meetings or where am I supposed to be? Or I've had this, for me, it comes down to I've putting rules into my life. So I wrote a book called Faster Than Normal, which is the basic premise that my ADHD is the reason for every bit of my success, and also for the first like 38 years of my life, the reason for all my failure and being miserable. But I learned from it. And the stuff I do that everyone thinks is crazy is actually the stuff that makes me have any success. And so I have these sort of life rules that I have to put into place. I have to get up before my daughter, before anything happens, and I have to exercise. If I don't do that first thing in the morning, I don't get the dopamine. I don't have my vision and my focus. I've had my assistant for like 13 years. 12 years ago, I go to put something in my Google Calendar, and it says you don't have access to this. I'm like, it's my Google Calendar. What the hell? It's my company. And I asked my assistant, like, we got to fix this. She's like, oh no, it's right. I took it away from you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You've been working for me for 6 months. What? That's not cool. She's like, well, you booked 2 dinners on the same night, so I think it's better that I handle it. And I'm like, okay, you're overreacting. She goes, no, no, no. You booked them on separate continents. You're done. And I have not had access to put anything in my calendar going on 11 or some 12 years now, and that's fine because I know what I'm good at. And
Right.
if it came down to the minutia, and if I ever try to override that, or I say yes to someone without going through Megan, I will not show up, or I'll forget it, or I'll go to the wrong place, or so yeah. You have to know what you're great at, and you have to either work with someone when you're just starting out and you can't afford like to outsource or whatever. You barter, right? You find someone who is great at what you're terrible at, and you do something that you're great at that they're terrible at, what they need, and you build that up until you don't have to barter and you can pay someone. And anything that you're terrible at, if you have the means, you should be outsourcing. That's like not even a question. It's probably one of the top things I've learned. Like
Yeah.
I know what I'm terrible at, and
Absolutely.
I try not to do it.
I've had this theory that the number one startup missing from the creator economy is like operations as a service, and someone just gluing together all the bits and pieces that are missing. Because for hyper creatives, or just like relationship people, right? Like often, right? Like a lot. I'm very much the same way. I'm probably more creative than I am analytical, but I'm fairly analytical. I'm just terrible at like certain things. But I do see all these creators, I think, could be so much more successful if they actually got someone to help operationalize the things that they do.
Yeah, 100%. Like I know that I am at my best on a stage. Megan gets me there, right? She tells me when I have to be there, who I'm looking for when I get to the conference center, whatever it is. And then once I have that, I go on stage and I rock it. Right? But I then look and says, okay, you have a car waiting outside to take you back to the airport. Your flight number is this. And yeah, you have to be able to cede away control, right? It doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means you're smart enough to not waste time on things that you're going to screw up anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So Peter, and in terms of that, what you're talking about, like focusing on what you're good at, right? For creators, like they are out there, producing content. They're good at talking about technology, talking about the weather, talking about news or food or travel, whatever, right? They're good at being the influencer, for people. They're good at socializing.
Right.
They're not good at programming, or they don't know how to they may not know how to how an e-commerce platform works. They know about ways to subscribe or necessarily build a community per se, right?
Yep.
They always need that helping hand. And while technology has made it easier for people to build these type of things, right? You see like, oh, well, helping hand. And what was that?
Sorry, I was just checking the other stream.
It's like me talking to myself, literally talking to myself, right? But Peter, like, how do you think that builders should approach creators in terms of offering that type of assistance, right? How do they? And because one thing I saw on your website is all about this phrase magical experiences, right? And that to that point of storytelling, like how do builders relate to creators and say, hey, this is how we help you create these type of experiences, these type of moments?
So, I mean, just yesterday, I get an email from someone, and it was, hey, I noticed that you have a community in your group. How much money are you losing per year by not following up with people that quit or whatever kind of crap they were running? And they said, to tell you what I mean, I made you a quick 2-minute video. Just click this button and watch it, right? And it's one of those, you see the GIF in the email. Okay, so that tells me 100 million things. It tells me that you searched on pages or whatever and found basically any site that had a gated community, and then you sent the same email to every single person, because if you'd done like the barest of research, you would have known that I list how I appreciate to be contacted, what ways you have a much better chance of actually getting a reply, right? Things I'm looking for at this very particular moment, things you can do, things I don't need, right? And one of the first things I say is, don't use those services that send an email with a link to a video, because that takes me as someone who's ADHD, that takes me out of my working zone. I'm not going to spend 2 minutes to get out of there because I won't get back into it. It's the worst way to contact me. And so I happened to have a couple of minutes last night. I was waiting for my kid to get out of the bath, and so I saw it. I didn't click, but I emailed back. I'm like, hey, FYI, here's 5 seconds of research would have told you, here's my contact, here's how I like to be contacted, here's why I don't like this way, here's what you could do better, right? And I get this, nasty email back like, oh, I don't tell you your business. I'm like, well, actually, that's exactly what you just did in the first email. And if you had done it better, maybe we'd be having a different conversation, right? So I think the first rule is just understand your audience, right? It has never been easier to learn about the kind of people you want to have hire you, or you want to sell your products to, or your business to, or your skills to. Virtually no one takes the time. We live in a society, and I talk to companies about this, about the concept of, I don't need you to be great. I need you to be slightly better than everyone else. And the bar in which we currently live for business to business or business to consumer or whatever is so bad. It's so low. It's almost non-existent. So I don't need you to be awesome. I don't need you to do these incredible things. I need you to suck slightly less than everyone else. No joke. Take that 5 seconds and learn about who you're pitching. Learn about how someone likes to get their information. Learn about the most basic thing. If you're brilliant at the basics, you'll win like 95% of the stuff without having to do anything else.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. So, I mean, there's no other, I guess, rule or tips in terms of like, besides that being the cardinal rule of like, know your audience. And I think that's the main thing in marketing and communications, right? Is to know who you're reaching. But from builders, that would be basically like, if you know how to reach, the travel bloggers or travel creators, then whatever you're building will appeal to them. And you can reach more than one. You can reach more than one segment if you want, but make sure you're doing it not at the same time. Do your homework and personalize, tailor what you're trying to sell to that audience. If I went on stage with the exact same speech, with nothing changed to every single audience, I'd never have gigs. I'd never get invited back. I'd never be recommended. I'd take the time, right? Even if it's just a cursory look, I'll look and say, okay, here's what this corporation does. Here's what this community I'm speaking to does. Here's what this event is about. Here's the people attending it. How can I personalize this? And again, the basics, spelling, right? Spelling, names. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a pitch email, because I still get a ton of pitch emails having run Arrow for media, right? Will you cover us? Will you write about us in your blog? And the numbers of times I get a different name, or my name's spelled in. How the hell do you screw up Peter? Right? And my personal favorite to this day is still Mother's Day of 2020, right in the middle of COVID. Dear Peter, we know that working moms like you have it hard. If that's where the bar is, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, belated congratulations then, Peter, I guess. I was this close to a spit take. This close.
You were a mom and a dad to that puppy down there. So
well, it's ironic because I'm a single dad to my 8-year-old daughter. But again, I go out of my way to do the whole single. My Peloton hashtag on my bike is Peloton single dads. Right? It started that community. I started that group. Yeah, it's just and it's not they said, oh, Peter Peloton single dads, he must be female. It's that they didn't do the basics, the back end work right. Yeah. Right. And I'm sorry, I don't care what the reason is. You blew it.
Yeah.
So Peter, I guess as an influencer here, why don't we talk about this, right? I mean, as you're a writer, entrepreneur, you've obviously been you're a very influential person, as we've talked about here. You've repped a bunch of brands like Huawei, Specialized, Silvana, Scotty Vest. Like, as an influencer, how have you seen the creator economy change over time? Is it easier to be a influencer creator at this point?
I don't know if it's easier. I think that, there'll always be sort of easy marks, as it were. There'll always be small companies who, the influencer or quote unquote influencer, and I hate that term to begin with, who's bought his Instagram followers and who's bought his likes, and right. There'll always be the small companies who, if they get pitched and they see someone with 30,000 followers and 1,000 likes on each post, will believe it and say, "Oh yeah, you're worth giving $500 to 1,000." But the thing is that fades really fast. It's not going to be a long-term gig. They're not going to see results from it, and it's like a grifter, right? They have to keep moving from town to town. It's probably not a good life. But with the rise of social and the rise of professional quality phones in your professional quality cameras in your phone. For God's sake, anyone could create a good reel and create anything. I think that an influencer has never been just about having the audience. It's about having an audience that relates to you, having an audience that wants your content because they know that when they see something from you, it's going to be exactly what they're into. My mom was a public school music teacher for like 35 years, and she taught in the South Bronx actually. And her thing was she was offered all these jobs at all these rich high schools and both public and private. And she never went. And her whole premise was that music education is a birthright, not a privilege. Everyone should be allowed to experience the joy of music education. I've taken that quote from her because I learned how to soapbox from her, right? And I take that quote and flip it and say that having an audience is a privilege. It's not a right, right? I have a pretty large mailing list and a pretty large social following. And if I randomly start giving them info that doesn't relate to them all of a sudden, or start selling them, or selling to them, change who I am, I'm going to lose that audience, and rightly so. It's a privilege to be able to reach them. If I start giving them stuff that they don't want, they're going to go somewhere else, and I'm going to lose that privilege. I have to work for that privilege every single day. To describe another way, it's for someone who does triathlons and races. It's exactly like wearing spandex. Very few of us have the right to wear spandex. It is a privilege, right? And I have to work for that every day by training. And I get that one day where I race where I can wear a spandex top. And as soon as the race is over, I get my medal, and then they say, okay, thank you, congratulations. Now please put on this t-shirt again. And I get that. Same thing. It's a privilege to have an audience. And so if you are an influencer, I think that's the first thing you have to understand, is having an audience takes a lot of work every single day to get an audience that will be willing to listen to you when you have a client that you want to share with them, or a product or whatever.
So it's a good transition, I think, to, I think we're sort of at this sort of pivotal point now where, and by the way, I agree. I'm not a fan of the word influencer per se. I think people have influence, but being an influencer is kind of douchey. But we are transitioning, it feels, in much ways, to like deeper ties, stronger ties, community ties, right? And community does feel like if you're good enough to earn it, right? Like it's a thing you can have if you've built an audience, right? Like, but they're not overlapping, right? Like one is a very, very small part of the other, right?
Exactly.
You've recently adopted, much like I have with the AMA coin, your own coin as well, the Shank coin over on the Rally side. And I do think, to the extent that there's a learning curve, a lot of this learning curve that we are experiencing is actually because we are transitioning out of purely like there's a massive amount of people on the other side of XYZ message to this new thing. And there's new dynamics and new kinds of things that we're trying to create. Now, obviously, like when you were interfacing with the media, there's a relationship side to it as well, but a little bit different. So I'm just curious, like, give us your take on community, its relevance now. And I guess, how does that weave in with sort of what you're trying to do with the Shank coin and some of the other NFTs, et cetera, that you're working on now?
So I was really fortunate to be asked to be a part of the first 100 creators, where it was like you were, and was blown away when I saw the concept, because it goes to everything I say about having an audience, right? It's the quintessential concept of that. If my content, if the stuff I'm creating and continue to create is good, my brand value, for lack of a better word, will rise, right? If it's not, it will fall and people will leave. It is literally the perfect description of that in the real world. I love the concept because I think that if it gets creators to start thinking more about their content and what they're building and their audience as a living, breathing entity, right? One that needs care and feeding, and you have to listen to it and learn from it and adjust accordingly. I think that's the greatest thing in the world, because we're desperately, as a society, we're desperately in need of that. We're desperately in need of people shutting up and listening to the people they're constantly talking at to learn how to do it better. From the concept of the coin itself, I also think it's a brilliant move because, I remember back in the 80s, I was and if I haven't, ruined my reputation by admitting I was in the Melrose Place TV chat room, I'll say that I was the president of the Knight Rider fan club in New York City chapter. Okay. And
I did not know that existed.
David Hasselhoff, big in Germany. But what did that mean? That means that meant
He
that.
actually is a music star. Let's be
Oh, I
honest.
know, it's huge. You go to Germany and literally every 5 feet there's a poster of him. But what did it mean? It meant that when they had a new season coming out of Knight Rider, I would get sent like glossies and like posters and like a schematic of kit that I remember I carried everywhere in junior high school, right? It's the same thing here. Imagine when this coin hits mainstream in terms of celebrities, right? What you used to have to be, you'd be the president of the Taylor Swift fan club and you'd maybe get to go backstage or whatever. Now you own these coins, right? And the thing also is that these coins can be sold, bought, used as currency. Is in my world, in my head, you go to 7-Eleven and it doesn't matter what coin you have, it'll automatically transfer to Ethereum. Dollars will automatically happen. And I have no idea if that's going to, but it sounds really cool. The premise that this being an economy for anyone, right? And so if people want their economies to succeed, they have to start respecting their audiences more. And I think that's the thing that's missing from the current concept of influencers, creators, TikTok stars, YouTube stars, whatever, is, they see all this stuff and like, oh, they start believing their own press. And they don't realize, as my dog chews something he's not supposed to, I'm sorry, they don't realize that that's not how it works. And that over time, as everyone can become a creator, that's not how it works. And the ones that are decent and understanding and relating to their audience more than the others, those are the ones that are going to succeed. And I think that Rally and the whole concept behind it really makes that a lot more clear and sort of pushes up that timeline, which I think is a good thing.
Are you seeing the start of everything that you just said kind of emerge with the Shank coin? Like, and not everyone can create a creator coin. Well, right now has the ability to create
Right.
a creator coin. It's not openly accessible.
Well, I think not everyone could create one on Rally. You can certainly make one.
Right.
On other, yeah.
So, but like, what would, so to that point, right? It's like, maybe I can't create one on Rally right now. And I'm like, after this, you know what? I'm going to go create like a news coin, right?
Right.
But how strategic should people be thinking about this as creators, as opposed to something a little bit bigger than themselves? Like, because let's look at it from as a Shank coin, right? I mean, it's, how are you seeing it being used to promote yourself while building a community around, what you're offering?
So in what I'm doing in my world, I believe this is still very, very new and very, very not understood by the majority of the masses, right? And I mean, crypto as a whole is not, everyone knows what Bitcoin is because they hear about it on the news all day, and now, a couple 100 million people around the world know what Shibu is as of this afternoon, right? But, that it's not as mainstream. And so the premise of an altcoin, right? And one that doesn't exist on, Shank is not on Coinbase. You can't go into an app and when you put something in an app, it becomes real, right? When to the majority of people, Facebook became real when parents could go on it to A, see what the kids are doing, and B, get a half a point off their mortgage if they clicked on that ad. That made it accessible, right? We're not there yet with any coin. And so for me, my belief now is that my responsibility is to help explain it and to help make it more understandable. Shush. And to sort of do that, I give away my coins a lot. Right? If like in my emails, I'll be like, hey, by the way, I'm going to do a drop this afternoon just for fun. And don't worry, it's one click and you'll sign up. It doesn't cost anything and you'll own this coin. You can hold it, you can sell it, do whatever you want. But I just, and I'll give away 100 coins, 200 coins. I've done matches, right? Anyone who buys X number of coins, I'll give you the same X number of coins for the next 24 hours. I think that we were given these coins and mined these coins for us. And if you're just holding them and expecting people to buy them, that's not going to work in your favor, right? You want to get people excited about them. And, I've been giving coins away since I first got my first coin and since, months ago. And I have people emailing now, oh my God, you're literally the best investment I've had in my entire life, right? Mind you, it's 20 coins, but still it's a crypto that's gone up. And so when that happens, they start telling other people about it. And, let's face it, the number one rule, no one believes how great you are if you're the one that has to tell them. But if your friend tells you how great something is, it comes from a trusted source. And so if I can give away some coins and people say, hey, I love this guy's content is great. And I love that this little economy he's building, check it out. You might like his stuff and maybe make $1 or $2 if that's the if that's how people find out about it, that's the best possible way. And so I think as creators who are lucky enough to have a coin, we have that responsibility, right? We have that responsibility to explain, to evangelize the benefits of something like the creator economy.
But you were talking about earlier to Greg's question that these type of coins are allowing you to how did you phrase it? Allow people to kind of see the work that you're doing, right? And in a different way. And I wonder, it's like, couldn't that have been done previously? Like, why do we need to have coins or some like crypto to do that now? I mean, you have a blog, you can put out a newsletter, you could do, put out on YouTube. What is the thing that ties it all together? Why are these coins like the thing that kind of like really ushers in this new era?
I don't necessarily know that it is, but I think that people tend to, when something new and shiny comes out, people tend to forget everything else they've ever learned. And that's a mistake. When the web came out, right? People forgot all about the concept of, things called newspapers, things like that. It's not about forgetting everything else just because there's something shiny and new. It's about finding a way to assimilate that into what you're already doing that works, right? I'm not giving up the way I connect with people. I mean, my emails are, look, I'm someone who created a company out of a simple email, and it changed my life. So I am always a huge fan of email, and I always will be. I believe it's the ultimate communications tool. And so, I use my coin in conjunction with the other things that I use to connect with and communicate with my audience, like whether it's email, whether it's social or whatever. And again, those are vehicles for the content I create, right? If I'm not creating good content anymore, or if my content changes or shifts focus, whatever, it doesn't matter how I communicate or what I do, I'm going to lose my audience. So this is another arrow. It's a great arrow, but it's an arrow in the quiver of how you grow your brand and how you market, for lack of a better word, your personal brand or professional brand or whatever it is to your audience and to new audiences and potentially new people.
I feel like the role that the coins blockchain elements play is sort of more in realm previously we probably would have called loyalty or other things like that, right? Because I feel like what they do is, for example, like I could have been a longtime subscriber to Peter's mailing list, but he doesn't know that per se, right? Like, and so this provides a way to manifest that without like a personal relationship or something like that. Like there's always going to be people in the cracks who've been there a long time that were participating, that were involved. And usually it's like only if you squeak up loud enough in some way previously, right? Previous generations did you get noticed, right? And sometimes that was for a good reason and sometimes for a bad reason, right? What I feel like is that it provides an opportunity for visibility into way more of the people than we previously had, largely because there is a record now of that presence, participation, that before was a passive thing, but still meaningful. And now we have a way to sort of see it more. I don't know. Does that seem right?
Yes, there's definitely a way. I mean, I'm not spending my day scouring the blockchain to see who's done what, but I do look at buys and sells. And if there's a sell, every once in a while, there's a sell from a name I recognize. And I've been reaching out, right? I'm not taking it personally, but I reach out and I say, hey, I'm curious, what did or didn't I do? How do I improve it, right? I'm not asking you to come back. I'm just curious, what didn't you like, right? And I did the same thing when I ran Harrow. I'd watch the unsubscribes, and you have to. This obviously makes it another way to do that, or maybe an easier way to do that. But yeah, I mean, you have to, if you're not looking at your unsubscribes and trying to reach out and say, hey, I'm not trying to get you back. If you'd be so kind, why'd you leave? Right? Or what did I do that pissed you off, or whatever the case may be. If you're not doing that, you're missing out on incredible learning data, right? And so, in my opinion, you have to be doing that. And this does offer another way to do that. And I think because it's tied to money, right, for lack of a better word, I think you're getting a lot of false positives. Like I've had a few people who I recognize and said, hey, I know we're friends and I'm not angry at it, but what happened? Oh, I just wanted to see if it could, if I could bridge out. I've already bought it back. I'm like, oh, well, okay, cool. And there's also that part of you that has to learn not to get upset and take it personally. Like, oh, okay, fine. You sold my coin. All right, you're dead to me. But it's like
on the coin though, Peter, you've got an NFT also, right?
Yep.
And I think the NFT is an even newer form, sort of participation. And while the coin, I think, you can give an NFT to someone, and that's a unique thing, right? Like those coins are sort of fungible, right? Like, yeah, someone could buy them, they could end up in a different place. But I show up to one of your events, you give me that NFT. Now I know you were there, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so I'm really excited by the NFT. You want to share a little bit about your NFT project and just like what you're hoping to sort of accomplish with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually like it's an easy conversation. I'm not really sure. I think that I like I said, I went to grad school for photography, right? I know how to take a good picture. My Instagram, I think, has some decent stuff on it, and I'm looking at some of the best ones I've ever shot. My profile photo on everything is a selfie that I took of myself skydiving over the pyramids of Giza, and I call it the world's most expensive profile photo because I literally went on. I was asked to go, and you had to pay your own way, and I deliberately went and I jumped out of an Egyptian military C-130 for the sole purpose of getting an awesome profile photo, right? I'm totally admitting that,
What
but
camera did you use, and how was it attached to you?
it was an Insta360 that was attached. So an Insta360 is this 360 cam that with two lenses, lens on either side, and it records. It's constantly recording from the second you turn it on, and then you can go into the software and turn the picture after you filmed it, right?
Yeah.
So any picture I get, I can say, okay, there's a frame of me looking pretty badass, and there's the pyramids. Let me turn a little bit so you can see the pyramids, and let me grab that frame. And so that's what that picture is. And so for me, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to make an NFT of anything, let's try to make this one. And I made it literally to see what happened. And the majority of people who bought it, I think 90 or 85% of the people who bought it were current Shankcoin holders who used some of their Shankcoin to buy it, which I think is awesome, right?
Yeah.
I didn't ever expect anyone to like put down $100 to hold a digital copy of me jumping out of an airplane. I wouldn't buy that on myself, and I'm me. But I wanted to see what would happen, and it's also a great barometer to show you who sort of is willing to dive into new tech. Because if I'm working with a client, or if I'm doing an influencer gig, again, I hate the term, but if I'm doing an influencer gig and it's hardcore tech, maybe I would suggest to the client, hey, my research shows these 10 guys and girls and guys are the ones you want to reach out to first. And maybe you want to send those 10 people free product because, I could tell you they're heavily into tech and they're not afraid to try something new.
Interesting.
Right. So I think everything I do is some form of research. And
Yeah.
again, when you're at EHD, you do pretty much everything with the premise of, oh, let's see if this will work. Could be fun.
Well, and I think the power of having those NFTs though is that you can augment them with value, any new value that you choose over time, right? So
It's true.
That's what's the power. You didn't have to know, right? Wait, tomorrow I'm gonna be like, the people who bought those first 100, I'm gonna just drop this to them now, right? Or
Yep.
I'm gonna use that as the key to get into this place or whatever it is.
And that's the thing. As events start to come back, I was doing a lot of in-person events prior to COVID, and as they start to come back, NFT holders, come on, you get in free, or you get a happy hour with me beforehand or whatever. It's also a great way to learn about your audience and to give your audience something special. If experience is the new currency and has been, I've been saying that for 20 years, the concept of owning something that very few other people own, or going somewhere, or getting into something, or, that's what people talk about. And the social world has drastically increased that, right? Ego-driven images and ego-driven posts are pretty much the norm. And look where I am. And what they're saying is, look where I am, or look what I have that you're not, or you don't. And so you look at that as a way to say to someone, hey, I know that you'll like this, and now you have this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's funny. Our friend James Hicks, who's been on our show and a very dear friend of ours, just posted this on our YouTube. Any spare Shank coin laying around, he'd be happy to pick it up. So,
So my email is peter@shankman.com. Send me an email and I will send you some. Yes.
All right, James.
No joke.
Ping Peter, and we'll get you some more coins.
So I guess so Peter, relative to this bold new future we do see here, are there any creators who you admire, I guess, in some of the experiments they're doing with their coins today or NFTs today, and anything new you're planning around the corner so people should be stocking up on Shankcoin before it's too expensive?
And remember
Well, I
what
think
show
we
you're
should-
on.
Exactly, right. We should always stack up a Shankman. This is not financial advice. No, I am always coming up with new ideas, and my Google Keep, whatever, is just full of things that come to me at 3:30 in the morning when I'm on the Peloton, or I wake up in the middle of the night and record something and say this sounds great, and half the time I don't understand what I said, and the other half the time they become potential ideas. So yeah, again, as we start to come back into sort of the real world in a post-COVID world, for lack of a better word, I'm looking at a lot of stuff that we could do with NFT, stuff I could create, stuff that I could offer my audience, stuff that people would enjoy, and I think that's the exciting world that we're in. And you're seeing companies get into it. And what I'm finding is you're starting to see some companies get into this in a non-stupid way. What do I mean by that? Every company at the beginning of the .com hype, right? Oh, we have a 150-year-old company and it's well known, but we're changing it to .com, right? And same thing happened, and we're getting rid of our website that we paid $800,000 for to have a Facebook page. All this stuff. And what I'm starting to see is there are several companies sort of doing it well. I'm a total fan of Vive, right? In terms of NFTs and things like that. And I've gone down
as Jeremiah
Vive, whatever. Yeah, I know, Jeremiah. I've gone down that rabbit hole like head freaking first. It's like I deliberately won't give a keynote in Vegas unless I can fly in and out on the same day. And looking at Vive, it's kind of like Vegas. But it's awesome, right? And I'm seeing what Disney and what Marvel and what all these companies are doing, and they get it. Right, and so they're becoming the sort of standard right now as to how to do it, and that's going to evolve over time. And so I'm looking at all these things and I'm saying, okay, what else can I do? Again, that the number one rule is, will it benefit my audience? Right? Am I doing it to hear myself talk and to see what I can do, or am I doing it because it benefits my audience? And it has to be more of the latter than the former. So, I would obviously say, while Shank is cheaper than it probably hopefully ever will be again, yeah, you should pick some up, but. Again, I don't like the concept of, oh, if you hold 100, I'll have a meeting with you. Like, I'll have a meeting with you because I'm a decent person. That's what you're supposed to do. Right. Yeah.
Not there's anything wrong with that, by the way.
Not at all. No, I have it on my page, on my rally page. But I will, my only rule is that you have to do it when on my timetable. So if you want to have a meeting with me and pitch me an idea or talk, it's going to be at 6 a.m. And because I'm not going out of my focus zone for 2 hours to. No joke. Come for a run with me.
I will definitely do 6 a.m. I've done 3 a.m. meetings here in Denver. So
yes, I will text Greg at early in the morning one time, and I'm like, and he'll ask me why am I up, and I'm like, wait, why are you asking why am I up? Why are you up?
I love it.
But the weird thing is, he's perfectly valid in asking me that question, because I won't get up until maybe 8 or 6, 7, 8 o'clock. But knowing Greg, he's up early, ridiculously early, working out or hustling. That's insane.
My show is 2 weeks from Saturday, so we're circling in around it. Now, Peter, I do want to say thank you. I know we went a little longer than planned today. I will. Ken, we have our 2 normal questions. I'll leave all 3 here. What's next in the training? What's your advice for creators out there, if you have any? And what's your advice for founders or builders trying to help build tools to help people like you as a creator?
So what's next in the training is I'm spending the winter cutting about 95% back on the cardio and focus entirely on lifting. Turns out I love lifting. And I have this wonderful trainer who basically believes that any problem in the world, from world peace to yellow teeth, can be solved by squats. Yeah. But turns out I really love it. And so I'm planning on lifting really heavy until about April. And then I'll decide, do I want to invest a 3rd year and training for an Ironman that I might finally be able to do? What would I suggest for creators? Be authentic. Again, this is a tool, and it's a great tool, and it's a phenomenal tool, but if you have other tools that your audience loves, don't give up on those. Right? Understand that you need to give your information, create your content, and share it the way that your audience wants, because they're the ones who control whether you succeed or not. Right? You give them the information the way they want, when they want it, and how they want it, and they become more invested. You do it any other way, without their permission, without them saying, "Hey, that's cool," they'll go away. And then finally, for people building the tools, I'd simply say, creators are a very talkative bunch. Look at what they're saying when they have a pain point and figure out if that's something that, that you can solve. It doesn't have to be flashy if it works. I'm an angel investor in several companies, and none of them are like the super flashy, super ridiculous. They're all the plumbing of companies that exist currently now.
Wow. Interesting. Awesome. Ken, those are my closing questions. I don't know if you had anything else, or Peter, if you had any last final thoughts.
Well, I mean, I guess in terms of everything, I think, what advice would you give to founders that are trying to stand out? Because and specifically in the creator space has become like early Web 1, Web 2 days, where there's, you want a social network, there's like 50 of them, and then it kind of whittles down to Facebook, right, and YouTube. But I mean, we're in the Web 3 wild west, so, which is kind of funny how they all start with W. But what advice would you give to these founders and how they stand out? I mean, because we're talking about rally coins, creator coins earlier. If I can't create a rally, I go on to some other platform. Like, what's to help all these other? How do I find the right one for me?
I came up with this concept once. Don't stop trying to make stuff viral. Focus on making stuff good. Stuff that you're making good will go viral, right? Focus on creating the best possible content that your audience has told you that they want. And how do you find out what your audience wants? Ask them, right? Literally ask them. Hold AMAs, hold live Zooms. Invite anyone and say, hey, tell me what excites you. Tell me what you want to see. Tell me the last thing that made you stand up and cheer. Look at what other creators are doing. The internet is just a giant copy of itself, right? Look at what other creators are doing. How can you take some of the things that worked for them, if it fits your audience, and adapt it so that you can give your audience that same thrill, that same excitement, and it doesn't even have to, again, most of the time, it doesn't have to be super, super awesome. It has to be slightly better than what they've come to expect. And like I said in the beginning, the bar isn't that high.
So stop trying to make fetch happen.
Yeah.
And with that,
I didn't say it.
Peter, we appreciate it so much. Thank you for your patience earlier while we were sorting through some technical difficulties. You can grab some AMA if you'd like. I will send some more to Peter just so you can hold on to it for the future. But by the way, you should check out the Shank coin over on Rally as well. It is a wonderful asset. Peter's building a good community over there. And, look, he's got a magic mind. I think he's going to come up with a ton of great uses for things to do with that. So we're looking forward to some of those as well. I'm holding on to mine. I don't sell coins. I just accumulate them.
I am honored. I'm honored to have been asked to be on here. I looked at some of the other guests you had, and I'm like, either they really ran out of, like, literally there was no one left, or this is an ambush, like, TV faulty style, like back in the 70s of ambush TV shows. So I'm just honored to and I hope some of the stuff I shared is useful and people find value in it.
Well, I think the fact that we know so many people and this gives us an opportunity to kind of really dive deep into, like, we know each other from a social setting, but we never get a really chance to digest and talk shop and really show how things can come together. And this is a great opportunity for that. And we are honored that you're able to join us and also to share with us your pandemic dog, which is adorable, absolutely adorable.
Can't believe he's finally sleeping. So no, thank you guys. Thank you guys.
I'm going to send you this photo that my wife sent today, Peter. You'll appreciate it as well.
Cool.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for Peter for being here with us actually today. It was really wonderful of him to drop in and spend some time. I need to find the tab that has this window so I can actually control it. But yeah, coming up next week, by the way, we do have John Allen from Lava Social Audio. It will be very interesting to chat to see sort of the state of social audio apps. We haven't had sort of a creator, I think, kind of in this domain in a little while. And, with all the changes around Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse and all these other things, it'll be a good combo, Ken.
Yep.
Just to catch up, though, don't forget Friday, we do have Creative Briefs, our news show. I think we've already got a teeming list of articles to go through. Next Tuesday, we'll have our office hours. I'm going to switch something up, though. So I'm only going to run the office hours show if someone is coming through with something like questions that they have. So if you're watching this now or later, feel free to shoot me an email. It's gregarious@zealous.app. or just leave a comment or a question on our actual show page. I will answer questions if they're asked around the episode, but I like, there's no point in it's just weird for me to talk to myself. So I don't like starting those streams and then just sitting there twiddling my thumb.
Just as long as you don't answer yourself, it's fine, right? You can talk, just don't answer yourself. Then people won't worry about you.
So, and then November 10th, we do have our friend Tom Buck joining us, YouTube creator, also very knowledgeable, sort of on the creator side of the house. And then Paul Backus will be joining us from Google for Creators on November 17th. So we are taking guests for January right now. So if you'd like to be a guest, head over to createeconomy.com/guest list is a great way to figure out, put your name in the hat to be on the future show. You can be on any episode technically, so it doesn't have to be literally for a deep dive, right? You could be there in the Q&A or office hours. You can also be there potentially in the news. By the way, that is one of the benefits of buying the AMA coin, is that you can be a guest faster. So with that, Ken, I will say goodbye. Anything before Friday?
Before Friday? Well, we'll see what happens with Facebook.
Actually, by the way, tomorrow the information is having their Creator Economy Summit, all day. It's a day-long event, so by all means, if you get a chance to tune into that, if you're a subscriber to the information, I believe you get a free ticket. If you're not, it costs like $250.
This is not an ad, by the way. We're not getting paid for this.
I'm looking forward to it. I would like to. I don't know how much of it I will be able to participate in, but I'm hoping to do so. But on that note,
play us out, Greg.
I will see you on Friday. Alrighty.
See ya.
Bye.